Here we are. Here we are. We are live. Welcome, everybody. Excited to be here. Just waiting for some to hop on. We are streaming live Kick, Twitch. We're so hip. Uh, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. All right. Here we are. So here we are live. Welcome to another Good Gut Live. My name is James Marin. I'm an integrative registered dietitian, environmental nutritionist, the co-founder of Married to Health, which is an integrative dietetics private practice for those of you that didn't know. And you are listening, watching Good Gut Live. And today's topic is very cool, I think. If you're interested in fermented foods, if you're wondering about fermented foods, if you're like, why should I be eating fermented foods? I'm going to be sharing what I noticed when really Dahlia and I'll speak for myself. If you can see, it's funny when I just have the screen all to myself. I love it, and it's weird when Dahlia is not with me. But I'm going to share what I noticed when I started really having a mindful and concerted effort to consume more fermented foods. So there's really great research behind this. I'm going to try to not nerd out too much and bore you too much, but let me know if you're watching this live. So again, just to reiterate, as we do every episode, you can watch this live on YouTube or Facebook or Kick or Twitch. If you're watching live, the benefit to that is you can ask questions live. So I will see in the chat your questions coming through. So put them down below if you're like, what's fermented foods, or what's this, or could be something off topic, but try to stay on topic with fermented foods if possible. That would be great. But if not, we're open to any questions. So you can ask questions live. If you're listening to this later on, thank you so much for listening to Good Gut Live, wherever you listen to podcasts. And so I'll always try to do my best to share the visuals we're seeing and kind of share what we're seeing for those just listening in and not really watching. But again, thank you for watching and listening. So today's topic again is fermented foods and what I noticed. And really, I'm going to share what I noticed about fermented foods. But first and foremost, it's so important to kind of differentiate differentiate what a fermented food is, but also why we're talking about this. It seems so like, who cares about fermented foods? Why do a whole episode on fermented foods? And really, it's probably because of, wouldn't say it's because of this study, but this study does a really great job of really expressing the issues here. And hopefully, you guys can see this pretty well. I want to make this, try to maximize it. Here we go. There we go. So if you're looking at this study, widespread extinction of co-diversified primate gut bacterial symbionts from humans. Now, what does that mean? And this is in PubMed. You can find this, and hopefully you guys can see that. But for those of you watching, it's PubMed. This was published last year in 2023 in June. PMID, for anyone listening, is 3716991 And this study just really looked at what's happening in the human gut microbiome. So they looked at they analyzed 9,460 human and non-human primate, what they're calling MAGs, which is metagenome assembled genomes, right? Obviously, everyone knows what that is, right? But essentially genomes, so like basically genome data of all these human and non-human primates, and really kind of looked at this diversification of it, looked at the gut, looked at the different species and strains. And what we found was, spoiler alert, if you read this and kind of just what they're looking at with this data is really showing that humans, over the course of industrialization and medication, and a lot of this has been really good, guys. Don't ever think for a second that I'm not appreciative to live in the modern world. That's why I can speak to you in the comfort of my office here on this microphone, and I'm streaming, and I love technology. I love the modern world. But in this almost kind of like this give and take, right? We've lost about 50% of our microbial species in our gut. And this is from, patients we hear all the time is like, I just eat broccoli and carrots and really nothing else. And the fruits, I eat apples and oranges and bananas. And continue that for the course of decades or since childhood, right? Depending how old you are. And does that really, and again, the bulk of the research is saying diversity in what you're eating promotes diversity in your gut microbiome. So if you're not eating a diversity, multiply that by generations, throw in antibiotics and fertilizers and pesticides. We have really great data and reviews and just research in general to show the human gut microbiome isn't doing so hot. And again, this is a message of hope. This is me explaining why we're discussing fermented foods. Just again, you hopefully, if you've been following us, if you've been listening to us, if you work with Dahlia or any of our other dietitians, we are very much gut centric. We love the gut microbiome. We feel it is the nexus of all health on this planet. And we are believers that you can rebuild, restructure, repopulate your gut microbiome, your gut microbiota, which is the population. And it can have this beautiful ripple effect of health across your body. We've seen it happen. We've helped others, in this process, and we believe this. And I feel like, and the research backs this up, as we'll get into. Um, but it's understanding the problem. So problem here, a lot of the chronic disease that we're seeing, the heart disease, the diabetes, the cancer, it relates to your gut microbiome. It relates to this issue of the study I just pulled up, saying we've lost about 50% of our diversity in our gut, right? So one of the things we're always saying is inside of your body is an inner ecosystem. And if you're concerned, so depending when you're listening to this, but right now going on towards the end of summer, we have huge fires here in Southern California. It doesn't always happen. Northern and Southern California are known for forest fires, are known for wildfires. And um, it's really sad. A lot of us who really love the environment, love animals, are always saddened by this. There's lots of efforts going on to rescue animals, especially like horses up there, dogs and cats, but also wild animals. And the wild animal refuge, are always, working overtime at this time of year. And so it's very sad, but I would say, whether you're looking at our local ecosystems or the Great Barrier Reef or the Amazon rainforest, where we know there's clear cutting and, people are burning trees and cutting trees, and the list can go on and on. It pales in comparison to the the species lost in our own gut. It pales in comparison to the loss of diversity we are seeing in us humans. And this is because, we just did another episode not too long ago on dairy, and we brought up breast milk. This goes to, whether it's we're not breastfeeding, whether it's how we're eating. There's so many factors in our life that can either promote a healthy gut microbiome or really diminish that gut microbiome. And the thing with your gut microbiome is that it's not just up to you, it is highly dependent on your family. It's highly dependent on the foundation in which your family laid or does lay for you. And so that goes back to your mother, your grandmother, your great grandmother. And that's what's called a transgenerational effect. So, what we're seeing in this transgenerational effect is if mom has IBS or other chronic diseases, or if mom has been on a standard American diet, if grandma was on a standard American diet, that transfer or lack thereof, the lack of transfer of of microbes, is basically having this compound effect over time. And then you're lacking the ability to have a healthy gut microbiome. And so this is very much a very great example is like inheritance, right? If you come from a family who is just really not great with money, right? I'm going to be honest. There's many out there, many families out there who are not great with money, and then now you have kids, or your parents had kids, which was you, and there's no inheritance. It's like, "Hey, mom, dad, where's my money? Like, did you guys save me anything for college? Am I inheriting a house at least or something?" Hopefully, many of you are getting this inheritance, but when we think of the gut that way, like this beautiful inheritance, like this beautiful gift we are giving to the next generation, unfortunately for many of us, we're not just really thinking of it that way. We're not really understanding, especially at a young age. And I'm totally, I raised my hand on that. That was me at a young age. I'm like, Doritos, fast food, chocolate milk every day, whatever, who cares? It's my body, right? Not realizing, oh, this has a drastic effect. And for women, even more so, on the health of your future children, right? Now, the good news to this, as we kind of move into what I really want to talk about, is that even if you come from this family, even if you maybe have a family who didn't give you the best inheritance of your gut microbiome, if you are making an effort, if you are eating foods, if you're making changes in your life where you can say, okay, I'm not going to continue this kind of cycle of not having those lifestyle factors that contribute to a healthy gut microbiome, of being mindful of what medications I'm putting in my body, of what lifestyle factors are really affecting me, then that's very powerful. And so that leads us really to fermented foods. And so one of the most powerful things we can do, and this was actually a really great study in the Journal of Nature. I want to make sure I get the right. Here we go. Like this graphic just really encompasses it, and does a really good job of speaking just on a graph. And so I want to zoom in here. There we go. So hopefully you can see that well. But this really cool study took, and again, it wasn't a lot of people, but took people and it put them into two groups: high fiber diet and a high fermented food diet. And what they found was benefits to both. And really, there's going to be more studies, and there should be more studies, and there have been really great studies to show, whether it's with the Mediterranean diet or many other types of diet that are high fiber, high plant food, high fermented food. But in this one, it was looking at the difference of high fiber and high fermented food on the gut microbiome. And what's really cool, and we've seen this in other studies, is eating these foods, eating these plant foods, eating these fermented foods increases microbiome diversity. It increases the function of your microbiome. It decreases inflammatory markers. It decreases inflammatory chemicals. I mean, the list can go on and on. There's been really great reviews on fermented foods showing the benefits. So what the heck does this mean? Like, who cares? Okay, eat fiber, and we sound like uh just a recorder on repeat, right, going over and over saying this: eat fiber, eat plant foods, eat fermented foods. Okay, who cares? Well, when a majority of Americans, and even those worldwide, are suffering with debilitating diseases, are suffering with a lot of GI issues, what can be done? And really, that is our mantra. That's what you'll see the tagline: heal with each meal, on our website and kind of wherever you're finding us and seeing us. Is there's really great studies to show that with every meal you eat, and depending what you're eating, you drastically impact your gut microbiome and therefore the rest of your body. So when you're able to drastically impact the rest of your body, you're able to shift away from this destruction of your gut microbiome. You're able to shift away from this really continued endless cycle of destruction, right? We're able to then promote the growth of structure and population and function. Really, those really are the three key areas when it comes to your gut. You're talking about the lining and the mucous membrane, so that speaks to structure. You're talking about population, which is archaea and bacteria and viruses and fungi and even parasites. Parasites are a normal part of your body and your microbiome in general. And then you're speaking to function, right? All of that is going to make your gut function and flow, which ideally most of us think about, and I think about having a great bowel movement, right? And not being constipated, not having diarrhea, not having all these issues. And so it's super important to understand all of these things are working together. All of these things are coming together to then keep you healthy, right? So when we're looking at fermented food in the research, and I'm going to get to what I've been doing specifically, but when we're looking at the research, and we're looking at what fermented foods are and what they do, I'll kind of just go there a little bit. Like when I say fermented foods, what the heck am I talking about? And I think we go to maybe products. I think kombucha comes to mind first and foremost. And for those in the chat, let me know what comes to mind, or if you want to comment down below or leave a comment, what comes to mind? What fermented foods are you eating? But really, fermentation typically and throughout history has been done with just using a plant food typically, and utilizing and creating an environment in which the microbes already in and on that plant food then flourish. And so typically we're doing this with a salt brine. And so we're using salt to specifically enhance lactobacillus bacteria to then multiply like crazy. And so the difference between fermenting and, let's say, food just spoiling, right? Because they're not the same, right? You can take grapes and put them in a jar and they're going to spoil, and you could take grapes and put them in a specific environment and they will turn into vinegar or wine, or just fermented grapes that you can enjoy without the process of turning it into wine. Same is true for cabbage, or really at the end of the day, you can ferment pretty much anything. You can ferment even some cheeses, animal products. You can do plant foods. I think for the most part, many think of plant foods like sauerkraut and kimchi, and even you can pickle and ferment carrots, and obviously cucumbers, which we know as pickles. And so really what you're doing is you're utilizing the bacteria that's already in and on the cucumber or the carrot or the cabbage or whatever you're fermenting, and you're creating the environment to then facilitate the growth of certain bacteria. These certain bacteria will then create a acidic environment. It'll create lactic acid, which promotes these beneficial effects, to grow other bacteria, to have this beneficial effect in the body, where you're then creating proteins and other short chain fatty acids and even vitamins and minerals. This happens also in our body, in the colon. And so really that's the difference between fermentation and just letting food spoil. That's the difference even between fermentation and pickling. Pickling, you're already using something that's fermented, you're using a vinegar to pickle, as opposed to using a brine and then letting the fermentation process, start. On that note, in modern times, a lot of the fermentation that's happening is being done with a fermentation starter. So you're using a starter. This is, in the case of kombucha, it's called a SCOBY, where it's a mother SCOBY, where it's basically a big clump of bacteria that they know this clump of bacteria is great. It has the right stuff. It likes to live in this environment. It's going to promote an environment which fermentation continues, and you get a great tasting kombucha. And that'll make kombucha. And depending what you put in, maybe it's peach juice or pear juice or apple juice, or whatever you're putting in, that'll give you a distinct and unique flavor to that kombucha. So it's really cool. Think of also starters to brines as well. We use a starter. We'll use something like that to continue the fermentation process. And yogurts, right? So we love a good cashew yogurt or almond-based yogurt, and they're typically using a starter to ferment and eat up some of the almond sugar and other kind of sugars they put in to start the fermentation, and turning that product into yogurt essentially, or kefir. I'm seeing some comments come in. Cool. Um, but yeah, so from there, you really then get a fermented product versus letting something sit on the counter and just rot and get moldy. You see the big difference there also is that rotting, you're getting multiple different microbes kind of breaking down that food product, right? You'll see mold, so you'll see mold spores, and that kind of speaks to really just like a candida or like a yeast, right? In the fungi family, you'll see bacteria doing its work where it gets all oozy and gooey. There's probably viruses on there. There's probably lots of different bugs doing their work on there, as opposed to fermentation. You're getting one type, or you're getting multiple types of healthy bacterial strains that like that acidic environment. What's really cool with this lactic acid or even like acetic acid, they really help to balance other microbes like parasites and viruses, and they really help to balance out in the environment as well as in your environment. When you ingest it, they will help to balance out other organisms. So I want to show you this. This was cool in one of the studies. um, let's see here. This is fermented foods. Yep. So it really gave you this really cool chart of the types of fermentation. So you have here um, lactic acid fermentation. So, how are they doing that? Well, they're using these strains here: Lactococcus lactis, Streptococcus thermophilus, Lactobacillus, and different forms of Lactobacillus. So, you'll see like these really cool strains that can have a different effect. There's also, when it comes to like ethanol, acetic acid, like I mentioned, propionic acid, citric acid. So this really dives deep into fermentation and the different types and what they do. So some are better for making cheese, and some are better for making alcohol, and some are better for making kombucha, and some, give different flavors and tastes. So really these like master fermenters that are in probably these fine dining restaurants or make these really amazing products, and really food companies consult with, are the experts in this area when it comes to like the taste and the feel of food. When it comes to the health, yeah, that's where you're getting some of these in supplement form, or people realizing, oh wow, these strains do certain things for the body and promote health in these certain areas. Let's bottle them up, or let's add them more to certain products. That's where now you're getting, things like Olipop, which have some fiber in it, or you're getting so many probiotic drinks out there that have certain strains of probiotics in their fermentation to support health and healthy properties. So that is highly variable, though, right? Like it just depends. Are they alive? Did they survive? Is it the amount they said? It's kind of all over the place a little bit. So the only way you'll know is if it's third party tested, if you're getting some independent testing. That's a whole nother rabbit hole, a whole nother topic. But for the most part, when you are getting products, and I'm seeing some comments on this, uh, so I'm seeing Judy. Hey, Judy, what's up? I use miso, but cannot tolerate a lot of the fermented foods. Does sourdough bread count? So, kind of two questions in one there. But yeah, miso, for example, is something we use a lot of. We love miso. You can put miso. Obviously, I think we all think of miso soup. Miso, we like to make miso dressing, so it adds a nice umami and tang. Any type of dressing, whether it's a Thai, barbecue, whatever type of dressing you're using, you can add some miso, and you're getting this beautiful fermented probiotic like umami undertone with the health effects. And people are like, "What? This dressing is so good. What'd you put in it?" The secret ingredient is miso for sure. Um, and there's so many other fermented foods, like I mentioned, sauerkraut, kimchi, and tempeh. And there's kefirs of all different kind, and there's yogurts of all different kind. And really, you can ferment just about anything. If you like, there's some who ferment lemon peels. That's big in the Mediterranean kind of Middle Eastern population. Turnips and beets, and I mean, just so many different, especially I would say root vegetables ferment so well and just give a nice crunchy tangy flavor to root vegetables, and you can ferment that. So or you can buy those fermented. And I will discuss, what we look for when we're buying fermented foods, but I think I'll go ahead and get into, and I love that. Oh, let me finish answering this. But yeah, so I'm seeing right here. Thanks, Judy, for asking some questions here. Yeah, I use miso but cannot tolerate a lot of fermented foods. So we'll get into that. Does sourdough bread count? And don't forget, I'm still going to get into what I noticed and what we are doing when it comes to fermented foods. But Miso, if you're not able to tolerate, now this is the one caveat when it comes to fermented foods, are those of you having histamine issues. So, for the most part, fermented foods are high in histamines, and these are proteins. That's why they're called histamines, like amino acids. They are proteins, and so histamines are a part of food. They're a part of our body. They're a part of the environment. And so histamines are everywhere. Now, they can be released. They can cause overactivation in different parts of the body. It depends how sensitive some of our receptors are. Depends what else is going on. There's also microbes that help you to break down histamine or even help to release more histamines in the body. So, depending on your gut microbiome and the health of your gut microbiome, will depend on how many histamine rich foods you can tolerate. But the goal is, if you're having histamine issues, you are realizing, oh, this is connected to my gut microbiome. I should do something with this. I should ask more questions. I should look deeper into this. And this is kind of what we do, whether it's with our Good Gut CBIBS program or with our dietitians, is help you look deeper into this and go, oh, it's not really the histamines, but here's some things to help. But let's dive deeper and go, why is your gut acting this way? Why are you sensitive to histamines? Why are you having an overreaction to histamines? And there's lots of reasons why. Go back um, on Good Gut Live or our YouTube, marytop.com. You'll find all the links and you can watch our episode all on histamines. So that is a big caveat. If you're low histamine, if you suspect histamine issues, if you have histamine intolerance, MCAS, there's all these other acronyms for your immune system acting up, you might not be able to tolerate fermented foods. But don't let that stop you. Don't let that. Okay, so disclaimer here, this is not medical advice, but overall, don't let that be the end all be all of you going, okay, I'm just never going to eat fermented foods again. No, it's important you eat fermented foods, but everyone's in a different place. Everyone needs a different level of care. So look into why, dive deeper, and know that many of you, and general majority, you can build back, repopulate, restructure your gut so you can tolerate more histamine rich foods. Does sourdough bread count? Yes, sourdough bread does count. Now, there's different levels of sourdough bread. There's different quality of sourdough bread. Like, ideally, you're getting this great organic, like non-GMO. You can triple ferment sourdough. It's really this slow, loving process where they're allowing the wheat to just really. I mean, it's great quality, ancient wheat to start with. It's not sprayed with glyphosate and all these other pesticides. I think there's something, last I checked, like 35 on average different pesticides, which encompasses like herbicides, pesticides, rodenticides used in growing wheat, because it's such a commodity crop. We don't want anything to hurt the wheat, so we use a lot of chemicals in commercial wheat production. And so, with that, on top of that, we're not really fermenting our wheat properly. We're not really harvesting our wheat properly. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But let's say we are just getting good quality sources of wheat and then allowing it to ferment. Sourdough can be great. You're getting kind of the end product of the benefits. You're not getting the really the living, especially if you toast your sourdough. Or obviously, the bread has been baked. It's questionable how much of the active starter or the probiotic is left, but the postbiotic, there's an argument that postbiotic is left. Um, so yeah, very good questions. And with that, so one thing, when we read this really great study, um, really showing that this was the effects of fermented foods and what was going on with the effects of fermented foods. And this was a study. So, it was gut microbiota targeted diets modulate human immune status. So this was a study done where it was like, hey, what if we put people on these diets? And it was from the graphic I just showed you. And they put 18 people on different diets, and they tested, okay, what happens to the gut microbiome as it relates to the immune system? What's going on So this was a really cool study. Again, it wasn't very big. It has some limitations. It's not the end all be all, but couple this with the other studies, with other reviews, with I mean, just so many studies done on fiber and plant foods and the microbiome, and really it helped us go, okay, in this study, they were really feeding people on a high fermented diet 6 or more servings of fermented foods a day. Now, okay, what does that mean or what does that do? Well, after reading all these studies and really looking into this is probably about 20 to end of 2021 going into 2022. The study, yeah, came out 2021, 2022. Dolly and I really took a look at what we're eating and went like, we are eating fermented foods, but nowhere near that. Like 6+ servings a day. We were nowhere near that. If I can remember properly, like at the time, we would maybe have like a fermented food like a couple times a week. Like we weren't really, I don't know, like we loved fermented foods, but we were not really in the groove of just consistently eating, I mean, 6+ fermented or servings of fermented foods a day, right? We'd have a kombucha here and there, we'd have yogurt here and there, and that was it. At some point, and I think it was from reading some of these studies at the time and other studies were like, we're going to make a concerted effort to eat more fermented foods. I would say it took some time, but we did get up to at one point eating 4 to 6 servings a day of fermented foods. I would say right now I'll speak for myself since Dahlia is not here. I'm averaging about 3 servings a day of just kind of like, okay, I'm feeling good. I kind of got in my groove. I see what I like and what works for our schedule. Because as you know, we're running a private practice. We have a daughter. We do a lot. So we do love to cook. We love to batch cook. We are eating at home for the most part. So it takes a lot of time and effort, but it's totally worth it. And now looking back, I've realized, oh my gosh, about 2 years have gone by where we really started making a conscious effort to eat more fermented foods. I gotta say, and looking back, and I wish I had done this more scientifically. I'm gonna be very honest of like, okay, here are my labs before, and maybe I would have gone all out on as many biomarkers as I possibly could and done a really expensive, lab draw, urinalysis, hair analysis, everything, stool sample. And then I wish I could then come now and show you all of that again. But I'm doing this totally anecdotally, but in looking back, I can say, "Oh my gosh," with so much stress. I mean, we had family. We all have personal issues, deaths in the family, and just family stuff, and I mean, business stuff and professional. I mean, I like to say we don't get stressed. I mean, we pray and we really are mindful of our stress, but we're human. We are flawed. We are real people, and there's stress, guys. There's a lot of stress, whether it's chemical, physical, emotional, spiritual stress happening on a daily basis. We are very real about that. And but in looking back, it was very different. And yes, there are other factors to this, but I honestly, I mean, now we are eating fermented foods so much. And looking back, I noticed some major, huge points. And those points are one, getting sick way less. Already, for those of you that don't know, I've been plant based for about 13 years, almost going on 14 years. And um, in that, I noticed my allergies go away for the most part. I still get some seasonal allergies, but before it was migraines, it was every weather change of every month or, whenever it happened, I would be itchy eyes, runny nose, migraines, sometimes having to lay down, take naps, or I would feel like sick from it. I used to have asthma when I was younger as a child. I used to have joint pain when I was younger, and going plant based and just overall becoming healthier, all of that kind of went away. We're not big, very sensitive to caffeine in terms of energy, but never really drank caffeine. And when we did eat more plants, which really was probably boosting our internal fermentation and boosting all the nutrients on top of our gut microbiome, we just felt amazing. We felt really, really great. And we're very mindful with our nutrient intake and supplements. That's a whole nother episode with the plant-based diet. But with that, though, speaking to the immune effects, even more so in the last 2 years, I'm seeing others around me get sick. I'm I can't even remember the last time I was sick. Knock on wood, pray, thank you. But what's really interesting is I was thinking like, why is everyone getting sick and I'm not really sick? Or what's going on? And I'm like, I've been eating so much more fermented foods. I've been eating such a variety of fermented foods and really been diligent with it. I'm like, wow, that's pretty amazing. Another thing I noticed goes to energy, and that's how I was speaking with caffeine. I wake up, I try to wake up when I'm in a good routine, 5:30 in the morning. I usually try to be in bed no later by 11. I'm not big on caffeine. Maybe I'll have a matcha here and there. There's a little bit of caffeine in kombucha. So when I do drink kombucha, maybe I'm getting a little bit of caffeine, but those are such small amounts that it really doesn't explain how I am a little bit older now, and I feel the need for less and less caffeine. Whether that is in matcha or other things. I was never a coffee drinker, never will be. I used to drink energy drinks when I was younger. Don't feel the need for that. Don't feel this fatigue and tired and malaise. And it's like, wow, what's going on? This feels pretty good. So um, other things I've noticed when it comes to fermented foods is just skin health. Like I don't have a skin care routine. I don't, do anything special for my skin, but I'm like, I feel pretty good about my skin, right? I need to kind of shave right now for those not watching, but for those not watching, my skin is beautiful. No, I'm just kidding. But for those that are watching, you'll be like, his skin is not beautiful. But I really noticed I used to have a lot of bumps on my arms and just random things you notice of like, oh, this is kind of bumpy or my skin, or every now and then I'll get a pimple here and there, but not like before where if I ate a certain way and I would get this huge zit. I mean, obviously, I still eat sugar every now and then. We still have like a plant-based dessert when we're at True Food Kitchen. There's sugar in there. And it's not like getting these huge zits. So obviously, this is completely anecdotal. Obviously, this is, not something to be like, well, James said all these benefits, then it must be true. Well, the research says it. So there's research to show these wonderful benefits. I'm just sharing how I feel, just making a really conscious effort to eat more fermented foods. My gut health is great. I did have an issue when we went to Egypt. I don't know what you would call it, but when I would go snorkeling, I think I put my mouth on a really dirty snorkel and I swallowed a bunch of the water and there's fish, probably fish poop. And I swallowed something and I did get sick, but it was 24 hours. Within 24 hours, I was back. I was catching a plane and back in action, back eating. I think had I not been as healthy as I am, there's so many factors to this. I would have been out for an entire week, right? So again, very anecdotal, but we know a healthy, again, then I say anecdote, but then the research, healthy and strong gut microbiome really helps you with, when it comes to whether it's a foodborne illness or an animal-borne illness, right? Or seafood-borne illness. In this case, I was in the water with the fish, or whether it was amoeba or a parasite, it helps you bounce back quicker. And I do have to attribute that to eating more fermented foods. Again, we are eating, or I'm eating, I'm going to speak for myself here, at least 3 servings a day. And what that looks like for me is typically I'm having yogurt in a day. Shout out Forager yogurt. We usually have Forager unsweetened plain vanilla yogurt or the unsweetened plain yogurt that we use as sour cream. It tastes just like sour cream. You can add a little bit of salt to it if you want, but we're putting that on our tacos. We're putting that on, our burrito bowls. Wherever we're eating, we're using just a plain unsweetened yogurt, and this is like a cashew yogurt. So I'm having yogurt every day. I almost do have a kombucha every day, and but some days I don't. So that can count. And then miso. I'm typically having miso at least every other day. And then usually kimchi pretty much every day, either a kimchi or sauerkraut or some type of kimchi hot sauce. I'm mixing kimchi into so many different things, whether it's a hot sauce, whether it's something else that's savory. Obviously, any type of Asian food, I'm putting kimchi on it. I don't care what it is. I even sometimes put kimchi on pizza that we're eating, and it just has that tangy, crunchy, sour. It's almost like when we don't have, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the little chilies that go on pizza. They're always, somebody tell me the chilies that go on pizza. What's up? What's up, Lena? Um, I'm seeing someone tell me, I'm blanking on it. Anyway, no, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. But anyway, it's the, you guys know pepperoncinis. It just came to me. Pepperoncinis, right? Almost like you can put kimchi, but even pepperoncinis, when you get the right pepperoncinis, those are pickled, and some of them, depending which ones you're getting, are fermented, and it's basically just these peppers in a brine that are a little spicy, but they're so delicious. I love that on my pizza. And you're adding a nice pickled or fermented food to your food and getting that extra serving in. So really important. So there's so many different ways, whether it's on a topping, whether you're mixing it into dressings, whether you're, just adding it to the side. It's really, really great flavor, really important. Someone's asking where we're from. We're from Southern California, so our practice is based in Southern California, but we see patients all over the world. We do a lot of telehealth all over the world. We have patients in Germany and Canada, Australia, but we are located specifically in Southern California. So, with that, I want to say that's how I'm getting my 3 servings. There's so many other ways to get more probiotic rich foods and fermented foods. And so it's really this episode, this time here, coming to you live with our Good Gut Live. And for those of you listening, is just a reminder, right? The problem is, yes, we are diminishing our gut microbes. We are diminishing some of the species in our gut, but there is a solution. And the solution is, yes, a big chunk of it, and a big important piece of the puzzle is fermented foods. Our fermented foods have been with us, and almost, I don't care who you are, your ancestors ate some form of fermented food. And if you can get back to that, that will have a drastic effect on your health. It will have a drastic effect on your body. There's research to back that up, like I was showing earlier. And anecdotally, just myself taking a more conscious effort in eating more fermented foods, especially as someone who's very knowledgeable in gut health. I would call myself a gut health dietitian who has a background of over a decade as being an integrative registered dietitian, but really consciously going, am I eating enough fermented foods? Based on these studies, based on what I'm reading, let me do that. And it made a difference, a significant difference in what I've noticed and what I'm feeling. And it's a great way to, one, inspire Layla, who, if you don't know, is our 9-year-old daughter, who she's eating way more fermented foods. It's inspired other people around us to eat more fermented foods. We're supporting companies who are making and creating these beautiful fermented foods. And we want to continue to do that because it's a wonderful way to support our inner ecosystem, to support our gut microbiome, and again, to just support our overall health and combat these massive chronic diseases we're facing. As you know, you probably know somebody with diabetes. Your gut microbiome helps with diabetes. You know somebody with cancer. Your gut microbiome helps to prevent cancer. You know somebody with heart disease, your gut microbiome helps with heart disease, and really your circulatory system, your tissue lining, your epithelial cells, all of that. There isn't a disease organ system that isn't connected to the gut microbiome. And if there is, it just, the research hasn't caught up to it yet. But I have yet to see where there isn't some glimmer of research or really well done research to show the gut brain connection, the gut lung connection, the gut pancreas connection. And really that goes to, what you're eating every day, what you're doing every day, the type of lifestyle you have every day. Is your lifestyle, what you're eating, kind of destroying this inner ecosystem, and are you contributing to this loss of species, or are you healing with each meal? Are you promoting an inner ecosystem that is being really bolstered and supported in a positive way with the gut microbiome. So, very important. If you guys want to learn more, click down below, marytouth.com. If you want to see what we do, go to marytouth.com. Our programs, our services, our free resources are all at marytouth.com. Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed this. If you didn't, let me know. If you did, let me know, where I'm like, hey, I'm talking about fermented foods. I'm bringing up some studies. I'm talking about our personal experiences with fermented foods and really just trying to spread the message of fermented foods and the benefits and really how it hits on one of the biggest issues of our generation, of our time, of what we need to do to kind of take action. I'm seeing some of you in the chat. Nice to meet you guys. What's up? What's up, guys? Great to have you live here for Good Gut Live. I'm going to see. Oh, someone's saying from Instagram, what about pickle juice? Pickle juice. So, yeah, I mean, overall, nothing wrong with pickle juice. And I'm seeing this kind of trend. I've been seeing that adding pickle juice to like your soda, which is it's hard. Like, yeah, pickle juice is great overall. It's usually going to be a vinegar. Vinegar's already a fermented food, and it's actually a I forgot the exact terminology. I don't want to say hyper refined, but it's a more refined fermented food where you're fermenting an alcohol and then you are then fermenting the alcohol even further to get a vinegar with a certain amount of acidity, and that's vinegar. So vinegar is an ancient and very powerful fermented byproduct, which then is used to make pickles and other foods. They're adding vinegar to pepperoncinis and many of the foods that we eat and find in jars that are shelf stable because vinegar is so powerful. We even use vinegar to clean. So overall, yeah, like one thing I forgot to mention was we drink a lot of apple cider vinegar drink. So the apple cider vinegar is mixed in with like a natural cranberry juice or a tangerine juice or something with carbonation, and it's an apple cider vinegar drink. So yeah, if you're drinking pickle juice, the one thing I would say is try to get pickle juice in a glass jar. Make sure your pickle juice is free of artificial colors. They like to put artificial colors as well as artificial ingredients that are usually more stabilizers that are in pickles. And if you can, and even better than just the traditional pickle juice, is a pickle brand that is using fermentation. So it's using a brine, true brine versus just vinegar. So that would be even better. But great question on pickle juice. Never thought I'd be talking about pickle juice on here. Well, I don't think I've done that quite yet. But yeah, pickle juice is great. So okay, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, review it. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a comment, give us a follow. This is Good Gut Live, brought to you by Married to Health, which is an integrative dietetics practice. And again, we are releasing an episode and going live weekly. You can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, Kick, Twitch, and wherever podcasts are listened to or watched in the case of Spotify. But until next time, we're wishing you just the best of health, and we hope you can always heal with each meal. Thank everybody.